Greetings to everybody from the cold kingdom of eSwatini. As introduced, Lindiwe Dlamini. Yeah, originally a chemical engineer, then migrated into the environment field and then totally got lost. I'm now in the development field, but I still work, the bulk of my work is influenced by engineers. So I'm still pretty much within the engineering sector. The engineering sector basically affects a lot of what I do. So yeah, that's in brief about me.
Great. So you want to start taking us ahead, telling us more a little bit about how you've been able to engage stakeholders.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this slide, a bulk of it, I know Bongile has touched on it, but I think one of the key benefits, I think, from the project was, helping us through our strategic planning process. Strategic planning processes are very, very, very important. I know sometimes, we have, as a team, a lot of ideas. It's easy to just get going and start doing things, but along the way, you realize that it's either you're doing too much or you're moving in the wrong direction. So I think for us, it was good to have, I'm highlighting too, the one we had with ASAP, that's our engineering registration body. Seni, are you saying something? Okay, sorry, I'm distracted by the chat. Let me ignore the chat. And then there's one session that we had with you as well, Aditi, and I think it was important for us because, like I said, at times we have a million ideas, but it's important to sort of narrow them down to what's within our reach, what's within our goals for the year, what is achievable, do we have enough resources? And I think that conversation was very, very important for us because that's the foundation basically of partnerships. Before you go out and meet partners, it's important for you to be clear as women in your respective countries what exactly you want to do. Because your story has to be straight when you get to a partner because they have their own goals, they have their own priorities, they have their own plans. So you really, really need to get your story straight, understand exactly what you want to do, where are the gaps, what sort of assistance do you need? Is it financial, is it technical, etc.? So I was just basically highlighting here that, first and foremost is the strategic direction, set the goals and agree on what you want to achieve in that year. Then from there, you develop your partnership and resource mobilization strategy. So on this slide, basically, I was trying to just show the intersection because, as women, you sit down, you have your own plans, you understand what you want to do, but once you start identifying and listing the different partners that you can work with, you need to then do a bit more research, understand what the partner's goals and interests are, and you're all operating within a particular context. It's the country context, it's your local context, it's the engineering context. You need to understand what's happening within the economy, what are the priorities for the economy, what are the priorities for research institutions, what are the key organizations that are using and recruiting engineers and what sort of skills. So I think the intersection of that is basically where your area of common interest is, and that's basically how you pitch your request or your proposal to partners. We can move on to the next slide. So yeah, I just put a few points about things to think about, and then I'll just go into the sort of step-by-step process. But first and foremost, I think it's understanding the offering, your own offering, but also importantly, the organization you seek to partner with. You need to understand what their comparative advantage is, what their track record is. Some organizations, have a lot of money, but you also want to affiliate with an organization that has goals and principles that are aligned with women. I think that's very important. And then, there's what is the organization's priorities, and before you go to them, what are you offering them? Because a lot of them are in business, so they want value for money. So they will always ask you what's in it for them. And then secondly is what I spoke about earlier, is the issue of the strategic approach. I think I've covered that, and aligning to national key priorities. I think that's important because you're all operating within a country context. So understand what the gender policies are, the policies on education and STEM. And then, yeah, that's the partners' interests. I talked about that. And then the planning, I think, is what I mentioned in the first slide. So you can move on to the next slide. So these are the steps basically that I go through that have been quite useful for us in eSwatini. We haven't perfected the process, but it's work in process. This is actually an iterative process. So you first start by identifying partners. That's an ongoing process because some partners are long-term, some partners are for a particular event, they fall away. So you're continuously looking for partners, and then you engage, you negotiate, you manage the partnership, and then you communicate the results. So I'll take you through each step. You can move on to the next slide. So first and foremost, it's identifying your partners. And I think here what I want to emphasize is that, we're not only looking for, I think that has been a big eye opener for us, that, in approaching a partner, don't always look for financial gain. A lot of organizations are actually financially constrained. A lot of our economies are either low income economies or middle income, economies. So, a lot of organizations, they look like they're making money from the outside, but there's only so much they have to offer. So look beyond just the financial gain, look at opportunities for networking. What can they provide in terms of capacity building, visibility and awareness? For example, if you're, having events, joint events, then you can have the WomEng logo there. You can also invite them as speakers or use them as influencers. So there are a lot of ways in which you can partner. It's not only from a financial perspective. In engaging your potential partner, what's important there is your WomEng network. At times we tend to ignore the network. Well, not ignore is a bit of a harsh word, but I think what I'm trying to emphasize with that point is that your network is your biggest asset. So the ladies who are part of the network, find out who they are. We need to know them in a more intimate manner. Who are they? Where do they work? Who do they know? What doors can they open? Can they be an entry point into their individual organizations? Depending on the organization you want to approach, find out how they do things. What is their modus operandi? Some organizations are easy to approach more informally. For example, with the University of eSwatini, our partnership there, now that we know and we can engage them almost on a call basis or email basis, it's easier to engage with the lecturers there. You don't really have to go through the dean and the vice chancellor, et cetera, et cetera. However, in some organizations, for example, the eSwatini Electricity Company, everything, as much as we talk to senior management, we discuss certain things, but at the end of the day, they'll always emphasize that it has to go, to the MD's office, write a letter. So you need to try and understand that to ensure the success of your approach. Be brief and to the point, and that speaks to preparation as well, that, do thorough preparation so that, we always talk about, in the work environment, elevator pitches, you need to pitch your idea, be able to pitch your idea in 30 seconds. By the time the elevator gets from the 10th floor to the ground floor, the person must know exactly what you want and how they can assist you and what's in it for them. And then most importantly is consistency. Some people don't respond, easily, but, politely just keep in touch, keep following up on that particular partnership until you know whether it's a yes or a no. Next slide. And then negotiating. It's always good to then formalize. Once you start working with a particular partner, what has helped is formalizing. A lot of our partners have insisted on MOU. So now we're in the process of developing an MOU with our electricity utility. We have one with RSTP. So MOUs, they're not legally binding, but they do sort of spell out what the relationship is with the partner, who needs to do what, when, You can put in things like if there's to be procurement that is to be done, because, you know, a lot of organizations maybe will provide financial resources. They'll want to know how you're handling that money, who's procuring what. If your WomEng chapter is not yet fully developed with a bank account and auditing functions, then you might want to request a partner to do the procurement. These are things that become a bit tricky in some partnerships, especially if your partner feels money was not handled properly. So it's important that there's deliberate and you know, careful consideration around the handling of funds. And then cost sharing. At times, I know that, for example, in eSwatini, at times we've had absolutely nothing, you know, to offer, but some organizations would want to see, you know, as much as you're asking them for assistance, what are you bringing to the table? So always consider cost sharing arrangements. That tends to soften the partner a bit more. Next slide. And then managing the partnership, I think it's managing the MOU, if you've got an MOU in place or whatever you agree on. Include those activities into your work plan. Ensure, you know, if possible, you can do joint work planning with the organization. That tends to work best because you know how you fit into each other's events. And I think that's what, for us, the Rail Science and Technology Park is also offering, where we'll even have opportunities to be speakers as part of their event. So including the key deliverables on the MOU into your work plans, I think, is quite important. And then there must be someone assigned to, you know, track progress and prepare regular reports, if possible, depending on how many partnerships are running at the same time. If you have more than one, then you might want to have more than one person assigned, so that the person, because, you know, at the end of the day, the truth is we all have day jobs. So you don't want to assign too much to one person. Partnerships can be quite taxing at times. So if you do have the resources, then each partnership, you can find out who's best placed to manage it. And then I think the regular reporting, not only for WomEng, but for the partner themselves as well, I think that helps, because, you know, they also maybe want to publicize, you know, some of the work we're doing together some of them produce brochures, leaflets, they're on social media. So that helps with visibility. And then I think importantly is being aware of the constantly changing needs of your partners and adapt accordingly. A lot of partnerships were promising in 2019, come 2020, come COVID, a lot has changed. A lot of our partners, you know, are cash strapped, some are laying people off. So the last person they're thinking about, or the last entity they're thinking about, is WomEng. So you need to be, you know, constantly aware of that. And, you know, try not to fall off, find out how you can be relevant in the times of COVID to that organization. You may not want to back off from requesting financial assistance, but, you know, what else can you offer? Just to maintain that relationship so that you don't fall off as a partner. And then communication, I've touched on, you know, using of brochures, banners, press releases. WomEng does quite a lot of work on in the eSwatini Observer. And yeah, I think the last slide was basically just highlighting some of the partnerships we've successfully developed with the US Embassy. US Embassy is quite instrumental even in bringing international speakers, basically from a motivational aspect. They do have grants that they offer now and again on a competitive basis, and sometimes are successful, sometimes are not, but they're quite a good partner in terms of supporting women in engineering. I think they've been there from the very beginning. ASAP, I know we've spoken about quite a bit. WomEng touched on that on the first day. UNESCO assisted us with the Girl Eng workshop. And, you know, tertiary institutions are quite important. Not only the university, we've got ECOT, which is more a vocational training institute, where I think, you know, they were also instrumental in providing us access to, you know, female engineering students. And then RSTP I've spoken about. The Knowledge Institute I'm highlighting here, they're quite a key partner for us. And I think there's a lot we can learn there in terms of, you know, tracking and, you know, the data, tracking the talent pipeline. We do a lot of awareness starting from schools to tertiary institutions. But I think what we need to do better off, and what the Knowledge Institute does quite well, is knowing who they've impacted and how far that person has gone. So for example, if you've spoken to a high school child, you must know how many of the ones you spoke to in high school actually went on and did engineering, and how many have graduated and are working, where are they? So I think that's a very important partnership that we need to nurture. Data is key. It's important for us as WomEng to understand the reach of our impact. So maybe let me stop there. Thank you very much, Aditi.